this is the some of the beautiful things. But all bank is not like that. Okay, if you utilize for your finance for this Islamic finance, then you can enjoy this kind of things. But let's say you are introducing international bank, so definitely you have to follow their policy and everything. But yes, true. Islamic Development Bank, they have a very important schemes, not only projects, even for different kind of technology inventions, power projects, example, many more things you can utilize Islamic finance.
Mhm. Yeah.
Just one more question, please. Islamic finance means that it has to be Sharia compliant. But
Yes, yes.
there's all, and I've asked a couple of times, and I asked myself a lot of times, if I'm not Muslim, may I have access to the structure, or I need to be Muslim?
Okay, okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes, I understand your point. This is very interesting. That's things for the Islamic finance I have to ask because I need to know detail. But basically, Islamic Development Bank, they utilize their finance in the developing countries. But example, I know, let's say from here, some of the research center, they are working for with USA. Okay, and they are using Islamic finance for their research and projects in USA. So definitely there are some way, but exactly I have to do some sort of research. But definitely I saw that from Malaysia for the Islamic finance with USA there are some bridging. So definitely there is a way.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Yep. Professor Schneider has just joined us. For those who don't know them, Nabatase, right? He is actually the former dean of the business school at the University of Chicago and former dean of Yale University Business School, and now professor of economics at Yale University. And of course, we have Ankit, who has his 1.3 billion followers in India. Roberto as an attorney in Italy. Terry is a CPA in Salt Lake City, and Rana is a PhD candidate, or maybe received his doctorate in Malaysia. So now we have Professor Schneider, who's going to give us, I guess, a brief rundown, because earlier our panel was wanting to know where is this economy going to be going in the next several months. Everybody wants to know, Professor Schneider.
Well, I took note of Neil Kashari's comments the other day. He is president of the Federal Reserve Bank of Minnesota, and he was commenting on the unemployment report last Thursday. And he said that officially U.S. unemployment's at 14.9, but then he said effectively it's probably closer to 23 or 24%. Pretty staggering.
24%. I mean, we haven't seen numbers like that since the Great Depression, I believe, right, Professor Schneider? Would that be correct?
That's right. And so I don't think it's any better in Europe or subcontinent.
Well, Italy would love to have these numbers.
Really?
You would love to have those numbers? Are you serious? Okay, what about Malaysia? How are we doing on unemployment in Malaysia, Reina?
Okay, unemployment basically, yes, it's happened. A lot of unemployment. But again, I say here actually Bhumiputra law is one of the important thing. Definitely, they will try with their Bhumiputra, like local Malaysian first, then the others community. But again, in terms of my point of view, because I move with the positive way, I get a positive result. For my company, I can say that is for sure in South Asia and Asia Pacific market, there are more business actually, business opportunity creating, especially project development and these kind of things. So I'm sure, very much sure, those the country, they overcome from this situation very fast. They can adopt with this kind of strategy. And unemployment, this will happen, but interestingly government gave a lot of support to the local community everywhere. They give a lot of incentives and these things. So I'm sure that a local community, they can overcome from this situation.
Mm-hmm.
And everything based on one thing I always say, maybe I can learn more things from you about this vaccine. The more easily it will come, and I think the problem will solve easily. Business later, first our life. So I think this is depend on the research center in USA, in Europe, and Canada. Those who are country, they are trying to develop this kind of vaccine. This is playing a vital role for this economy.
Oh, Professor Schneider, everybody wants to know if you have a crystal ball and you can give us any idea what the economy is going to look like, or maybe the Federal Reserve in the next 3 or 4 months. What are we going to be looking at?
So I think I left my crystal ball somewhere. it's boy, oh boy. You know, it seems that we're going to have to deal with unemployment in a way that is maybe not possible with this political environment. I can't help but think we're just going to have a lot of businesses that are not going to come back. This idea of banking the economy, the way that you bank a fire, you know, just put it off to the side and hope the embers don't die. And then, as your guest said, you know, wait for a vaccine or a treatment. I don't think that's going to work. I think the fires, the embers are going to die out before we get a vaccine, unless we come up with something else. And the challenge I have right now, which goes beyond your question, Nick, is what's going to happen with globalization? And, you know, if we put a clamp on globalization the way that was done post Great Depression, then we're just adding something else to the economic slowdown. So, and just remember, 2016, New York Times said, even well before COVID, we're at the end of globalization. We've had Brexit, we've had Trump, we've had the Italian elections, we've had U.S. withdraw from TPP, U.S. withdraw from Paris Climate Accord, and now you add in mass unemployment in a lot of the countries around the world, and there's going to be a whatever country named first mentality, so that there's going to be a reluctance to engage in global activity. And I think that's something, even though I don't have a crystal ball, that's something to watch out for. Because I think if we allow this so-called anti-globalization narrative to be definitive, that's going to make the economic recovery yet more difficult.
Okay, well, I can help you out here a little bit, Professor Schneider. I brought my crystal ball just in case you didn't bring it. I want to make sure I. So the thing is, only
we all have one of those.
You gotta have a crystal ball, you know, to figure out where this thing's going.
Nice to see you, Professor Snyder.
Yeah, yeah.
Namaste.
Between now and the end of the year, we're in for some little bit of rough seas because, I saw those unemployment statistics and I'm going, well, what are you going to do with, 20 or 30% of the population out of the job market? In other words, they don't have jobs. It's going to people funding their retirement, like Terry was talking about retirement plans. How are people going to fund their retirement plans if they don't have jobs? And Jim was on earlier about mortgages. How are people going to get mortgages if they don't even have jobs? I mean, they're not going to be able to even be part of the economy. So what's going to happen between now and the end of the year?
Great friction out there right now. I mean, this is something that we've been talking about with you, is the great friction.
Yeah, and since you're an economics professor, you're in what they call the dismal science, right? So the thing is, what's going to be dismal between now and the end of the year?
Well, as a business school type, I often am asked about the disconnect between the stock market and the real economy. And of course, part of that is simply that the stock market looks ahead and they're looking beyond the between period where we have flattened the curve, but before we get a vaccine. But I think there's something else going on here. I think there's another dimension of the disconnect, and that is if you look closely at the stock market recovering, while we have mass unemployment, a lot of it is being driven by tech companies and sort of new ways of organizing economic activity. And a lot of the companies that employ millions of people are not part of this stock market recovery.
Mm-hmm.
I think this question of what are we going to do with mass unemployment, and whether it's a family IRA pension plan or a city and local government pension, a union pension. I think we talked about it before. It shouldn't be viewed as just a health crisis. It's a multidimensional crisis, and the question of how to resume economic activity continues to bother me the way that it's framed, because people in leadership positions, you hear it all the time. Well, we got to do it safely. Well, tell me, how are you going to do it safely? And what's safe? There's nothing safe.
Thank you. I mean, are we going to wear masks? Is that it? Do we have policy for economic safety? We don't have masks.
What are you going to do at Yale University?
Put a dollar on it.
You have students coming in in the fall. Are you guys going to be open for students in the fall? Are the students going to wear masks in the fall? I mean, what are the decision making of higher education? What are you guys going to do?
I love Roberto's reaction, just giggles. So University of Arizona is led by a president who's also a physician, and he's come up with a way to open up that university. In the case of Yale, right now the university is saying they don't know. They want to follow guidance. They want to follow what the state gives out in terms of guidance. The only thing they've promised is that they won't ask students to arrive without giving them 60 days of notice. So the question that you asked, we're all debating. Are we going to be online? Are we going to be in person? Are we going to be online and then small breakout rooms where we can then do social distancing? I don't know. I just talked to a student who was admitted to Yale Law School, which is probably the hardest program to get into at Yale. And I asked him if he's looking for an apartment. And he said, I don't know. I don't know that I need one yet. So there we are.
Yeah. Raina, since you are in the PhD program, you just graduated in Malaysia, in Kuala Lumpur, and we did an analysis of Malaysia with 30 million people. They only have 100 deaths. Okay, 30 million people, 100 deaths. So you have you've really controlled the coronavirus very well over there. What are they doing about education over there? Are your schools open in Malaysia, or what's going on over there?
No. Actually, university, school, college, whatever it is, everything closed. They close everything 100%. But university, schools, and college, they're providing online educations, 100% online. Let's say, like for let's say I'm a PhD student, I'm connecting with my supervisor with Google Educations. Okay, that's it. And here's actually a long time they are trying to introduce these things. Many universities, many schools, they already have this kind of online education things. This is the good time they can try to implement these things. I do not want to say they are 100% successful, but they are implemented successfully. Even interestingly, there are many international students in Malaysia. Even the university giving them a very good support to the students. Like around 60,000 students in different university. Malaysian government they give them food, they give them supports. Even different high commissions, like those who are representing their government, they also providing support to international students. So everybody trying to help each other. We are trying to help each other.
May I ask a question? So Malaysia, like Singapore, has pursued this sort of educational hub strategy.
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
If you're online, then you don't have the people coming in from the region. How is that going to work?
No, what do you mean? Now everything actually lasts 1 and 2, like 2 months, more than 2 months. Everything locked down here in Malaysia. But those who are international students inside Malaysia, they are getting their service in that way. Second thing, let's say some of the students they're going outside. Okay, let's say Indian student they come here, but they're going back to India in that situations. So government and local high commissions from Malaysia, they are trying to support their student. After the MCO is open, the international student will come, even though their visa will be over. They can give them the valid reason that this is the reason I cannot come. They will come again to Malaysia, and definitely Malaysia strongly follow SOP. SOP means like social distancing policy.
But okay, thank you. So, but opening up the educational system and reopening classes means bringing in a lot of people from outside Malaysia. Is Malaysia willing to do that?
Okay, okay. This is very valid questions. Time step by step we can understand the situations. At the present, maybe I do not give you the solid issues, but I can interlink one of the things. This is my understanding. You can give me guideline and other things. Like country like Malaysia, even here actually, even like let's say USA highly affected, Europe highly affected for COVID-19. Malaysia and this kind of country. I think major interesting thing is that researcher give more explanation those who are healthcare and this industry, but environment is a major issues. What I can understand, like where is a warm weather, like Malaysia is a one weather, Singapore is a one weather. Where there is a warm weathers, I think COVID-19 effect is not so much here. This is fact, you cannot deny. Second things I saw, like I do not know, but as I'm working as a researcher, I'm trying to get some sort of research paper and something like BCG vaccinations, those who are using in developing nations. This BCG actual vaccinations, it's maybe playing a vital role. Even if you like look at India, if you look at Bangladesh, these that there also death rate is not so high. And third things is that like definitely developing nation, let's say Bangladesh, let's say Pakistan, this let's say this country, it's my observation, their immune system is highly protective because they are already inside of lot of virus, this that in environment. Their immune system is not so much of fast word. And this is my observations, and I do some sort of research in that area. I find maybe it's working, maybe it's fact, but weather, definitely weather is a big issue. You cannot deny. Why Europe and Malaysia has big difference, why USA and Malaysia has difference. Yes, government take
Africa as well.
Yeah.
Yes, weather. And this, there is a huge relation, the virus and the weather. I think there is something.
There was a study by two MIT professors on SSRN.com that showed that 90% of the coronavirus outbreaks take place in cold weather climates. But at the same time, when they have a younger demographic, there's not a death mortality rate. So what happens is, Professor Snyder, it seems to me is that all the students could show up, they're going to be okay, but the professors won't be if they catch the coronavirus. In other words, it's not good for the professors. But I'm not sure. I've seen some litigation that's involved where students are suing universities saying, wait a minute, we don't want online education. We want one-on-one education, and that violates our contract. Are you seeing any of that, or the people at Yale discuss that at all?
Yes, everybody knows U.S. is a very litigious society, and the students have figured out that they can bring lawsuits, and the older faculty, if they become ill, they'll bring lawsuits. There'll be a lot of lawsuits over COVID. And I talked with the president of a major consulting company the other day, and I asked how business was in terms of management consulting and litigation consulting, strategy consulting. Said, well, it's down a little bit, but wait until the COVID-19 cases come along.
Right. Roberto is a fourth-generation lawyer in Italy. So, Roberto, there's plenty of legal jobs here in the United States when this COVID-19 hits, because the litigation scene is just going to ramp up. And I see litigation springing everywhere. when on this COVID-19 thing. And my goal is to have zero litigation because I don't want to do that anymore.
Maybe I think Kimberly and I seem to be on the same page in this regard. It seems that we're looking for a zero risk baseline. And it just it's not available. And especially in the US, and I don't know about how it is in Malaysia and Italy, but there's a sense that somehow the government has to take responsibility for these baseline risks. And I think the leaders, at least to whom I'm listening now, are not setting expectations and saying, we're in deep yogurt. No, we cannot find a path where we're not going to have COVID-related deaths. And your point about the age profile, they're not willing to talk about that. In Connecticut, one of my colleagues at Yale did an analysis of deaths in Connecticut, and nearly 60% were in nursing homes.
Right.
And
That's right.
Presumably others not in nursing homes were elderly. So, I mean, age is appears to be the number one influence.
Yeah. Okay.
On mortality rates.
Yeah.
Well, we know that
And then weather comes in too.
Yeah.
I mean, we are living with other diseases. Basically, there's Ebola, there's Zika, there's influenza at the end of the day. Which the idea of getting rid of COVID-19 forever and there will be no cases anymore is unreal, basically. So we have to find a way to minimize the deaths and the cases, but think that there would be zero risk. I think it's impossible.
Yeah, and Terry, you're in Salt Lake City area, and Terry, Utah has the youngest demographic of any state in the United States. What is BYU and University of Utah doing on this upcoming, in the fall semester? Are they going to open up, or what's going on over there?
I have heard nothing said yet definitively. I haven't even heard any rumblings, but then I'm not really plugged into that community. But Mr. Snyder, the quotation, the statistics that you just quoted are very consistent with Utah in that we've been very successful with generally controlling the coronavirus. Utahns are very cooperative. They tend to play the game, whatever the game has to be. But probably 60% of the deaths from coronavirus in Utah are seniors, either confined in rest homes or at risk anyway. And your general comment about no government, no organization can cover all risk is absolutely right on.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be it's a bit of a problem, but I see the lawyers out there. They're going to sue the universities. Well, the students are going to maintain lawsuits because they don't want the online education. They don't get the quote college experience unless they're in dorms, associated with other students. They're physically meeting professors, and so shifting everything to online is a hazard. It's a litigation hazard in of itself. But then if you bring the students onto the campus, you face another hazard. It's the coronavirus. In other words, unless our students wear masks, and how are you going to socially distance them in a classroom? I'm not sure how this is.
And I think we need to step the game up a little bit and talk about why we just don't have a really strong economic team out there pulling together the talks and conversations we need at a higher level globally, not just in the United States, but to talk about all of these factors in place, because these students are going to graduate and they have no jobs to go to. Have any zero risk plan, as Professor Snyder has, brought to our attention. And we just, fine, we can't go to school right now. Get over it. North Carolina State University already accepted it. They've already put in their plan. And I think that helped us get over that depression stage of it. So we're not sitting there going, are we going? Are we not? What do I do? It's already in plan. Done. Boom. Move on to the next thing. And maybe because it's more about engineering based, and engineers have no problems doing their work at home. But for the most part, there were a lot that are suffering because they cannot get access to the labs that they had hoped to, even though we tried to have that available to them. But I think uncertainty is what's driving the depression, not just physical depression, but economic depression. We have uncertainty, and uncertainty drives fear, and fear just drives the ability not to make decisions. But we don't have the right leaders in place. And I'm not saying the president isn't the right leader. I don't think anyone's put our economic leadership together. Am I correct, Professor Snyder?
Well, I've been having conversations with people across different sectors, and we're just beginning to try to figure out how to name what you're talking about. But there has to be a bigger picture.
Exactly.
And that's the phrase I'm starting to use, and I'm emailing people. We're going to try to get a serious conversation going.
It's got to connect. It's got to unite the world.
I think we're going to be okay in 2021 next year, because I think the vaccine was going to come out. So the thing is, between now and next year, you're going to be okay. The only problem is you're going to have the year 2020, 2021 that's going to be very problematic, because the vaccine isn't going to come out. The treatments are still lagging. Now, Northeastern did everything online on the graduate tax, but not everything can be online. In other words, people, are going to need, the college experience. How are you going to be able to deliver that product? I just don't see how that's going to happen. I also see graduate students, people graduating, they're not going to have jobs. Might as well go to graduate school. So the thing is, I think people are going to flood from college into the graduate school, because universities are good to get, you might as well get your graduate degree now. But the thing is, I don't see the product being delivered on campus.
Especially at Northeastern, where
it's too crowded at Northeastern. Yeah, but the tax program I teach is online anyway. It's been online for 10 years, so we're not
has all those projects and so forth. I mean, I don't know how one can do that.
Yes.
But we built our economic by building jobs, right? So you build jobs like when they said, okay, let's lay the railroad. And of course, those are the low income jobs. But we can build jobs by saying we need to build more research labs. We need to build more test kit manufacturing facilities, because maybe we need to start testing every day like they're doing in the White House, so people can get back to work. Testing every day is not a problem. They're doing it. People test their blood every day, sometimes 3 or 4 times a day. So it's not dangerous. You just have to do it properly. But, I think these are things that we need to be doing, not talking about it, but doing it, right?
You can test all the students. Test the professors.
Test them every day. And then you isolate the problem and you isolate the flare-ups.
Testing might be the solution.
I think it is.
Arena.
Okay. I have a question, especially ma'am, Kimberly. Okay, especially you are women, and I'm actually doing research on glass ceiling factors. It's actually women empowerment and this kind of things. It's a hypothesis, like for a developing nations. Okay, I just want to learn. Okay, for a developing nations, like where India, like examples, Bangladesh and Pakistan and this kind of countries. In that situations, how women can more engage with these economical activities, like they can contribute in the economy, or they can generate income for their family. Is there any projects? Is there any possibility? Is there any strategy? I just want to know, because you have to understand the US economy and this kind of developing countries economy completely different. Culture-wise different, but is there anything that we can learn from first world or adapted our, especially women?
Wow. So what I have to say in that area is probably very minimal. First off, what we need to do is take a look at the fact that most women are sent back home to be with their children. And there are a lot of fathers too. Don't get me wrong. But we do suffer the most impact from situations like this. And what we need to do is take a look at how we can get the women back into employment, because a lot of women are self-sustained. Like, they must be self-sustained in order to exist in the society, or they're dual income sustained. And so that's something that we do need to take a look at. Women are generally mostly expected to be at home with the children and teach them at this moment in time. And we've talked with a few women, but I don't know that this is a woman or man or any kind of, I think we need to set aside the prejudice and just figure out what we need to do to make the economics work again, and deal with the prejudice and empowerments later. But I think we just need to figure out what jobs are available, what we can do to help each other. Back in the days, many years ago, I used to think that they created war just to reestablish the economic situation and provide jobs. I hate saying it, but that's just what I think happened most of the time. Those wars generated jobs for women, and I think that will happen here again. I think that, but right now, I think that you're going to see more jobs for men, because it's going to be easier for men to go out and work. Just like the construction jobs, the construction industry has not just sustained, but it has grown, according to some of the conversations I've had recently. And those jobs are more for men. Even though women are out there working, they're male dominant. But we're just going to have to work together, and we're going to just have to help each other. What do you think, Professor Snyder?
Yes.
I'd like to bring it down to the individual level, like the question is going in that direction. So if I were young, it takes a little while to go through this thought process, but bear with me. If I were young, I would try to figure out what are the big trends and will they continue? And we talked about the anti-globalization narrative. My colleague at Yale, Stephen Roach, some of you may have heard of him, former vice chair of Morgan Stanley for Asia Pacific. He's been teaching at Yale for 20 years. He's been a big proponent of China and US. April 27th, he wrote, "The end of the US-China relationship." Well, wow. Now, does that mean, is that at the governmental level? What are the economic implications of that claimed end? Do you as an individual, a young person trying to chart your way through this, and Nick, you raised it. I mean, you graduate, what do? You go to school and continue. But I would ask myself, do I believe that globalization is dead? Now, my answer would be no. Of course not. I mean, this is sort of my hobby a little bit, but the Earth is 4.7 billion years old, and life on Earth is like 3.7 billion. And Homo sapiens, the last 300,000 years, started moving around. In our little window of time, it's a story of globalization and cooperation. And I think there are a lot of frictions, of course, but that just means there's no 6-lane highway from A to B. That makes it more interesting for the people who can figure it out. And I think that if I were young and faced with this dire economic picture, I would be trying to become better at global stuff, better at team stuff, better at listening, better at asking questions than anybody else. And it's just practice. I mean,
I totally concur.
There's no textbook on how do I become a great global team member.
Yeah, totally concur. And the opportunities globally are are China is just not the only country in the world. As Ankit showed me, India also has 1.3 billion people, and Indians are nice enough to speak English. Rana isn't from Malaysia. They have 30 million people. And I told him, I said, look, in the US, it's hard to get information about Malaysia. They focus on Australia. In other words, we see things on Australia, but Rick Steves Europe doesn't go to Malaysia. Okay. Matter of fact, I was saying I know very little about Malaysia as a country because we just don't get the feed, we don't get the education about Malaysia. But he told me they have nice people, good food, good golfing, good beaches. I mean, what's not to like, so he sold me on going to Kuala Lumpur. I'll go, because also traveling today, Professor Snyder, it is so inexpensive. I go to Orbitz, I can go round trip to New Delhi for like $600 to $800. I mean, it's like next to nothing. If you shop right, you can go to all these cities around the world. I went to Italy a couple months ago and got the Italian experience before the coronavirus. And what a great country that place is. So undervalued. They have the best artwork in the world. Yet, it's affordable to go to. And we found out working at IBM TV, we can broadcast all over the world now. And the people come in. We're having a little bit of problems with certain places in Africa. South Africa, we have a whole show going on, no problem. But certain places have bandwidth issues. But the bandwidth is so much better than it was 20 years ago. Raina comes in real time right now. Roberto comes in real time right now. And I just see that the international opportunities are greater than before. And China, to me, just one country. Yeah, it's a big country, but India's big too.
Well, I'd put in a plug for Malaysia.
Yeah.
I've been there. It's a phenomenal country. I would also put in a plug for Vietnam. What a wonderful country. As an American who grew up during the Vietnam War, I went there and I thought, oh my gosh, it's just, when I think of Vietnam, I think of war. Well, they've moved on and they're just wonderful people. Poland is another very interesting country. Compared to Italy, of course, the demographics in Poland are much younger. But I mean, they're just thousands of opportunities out there. But you have to decide if you're willing to invest in skills and capabilities to deal with these frictions. And I think, I'm maybe a little bit of a contrarian, but when everybody's saying anti-globalization, I'd step back and say, well, wait a minute. Let's actually think that through. The end of U.S.-China. Do I really believe that? I don't think so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree with you. I don't think so.
As we learned from COVID, you don't miss things until you miss them, which means everybody can say, "Oh, I don't like globalization" and so on. And then when things that you think necessary, or you think that are part of your life aren't there anymore because they were produced outside from your country, then they will miss the globalization. So.
Yeah, I just don't see that U.S. and China may have some friction. It's also a very big trading partner with the United States right now. But I actually see that we will expand into other countries and do more trading with countries like India, Malaysia, Vietnam, and the countries you mentioned, Poland. I think that's going to expand rapidly. We're not going to be so dependent on China being the only source for manufacturing. I think
you just because the leaders might not have been right. I mean, do we just completely say no China? We can't do that, can we, Professor Snyder? I mean, I'm not a proponent of China. There are my own personal reasons, but
I think your approach is right. I mean, we'd be stupid to ignore the frictions and the bases for the frictions and say, oh, I don't think you want to be, engaging in happy talk. Oh, it's just fine. There are no issues. There are issues. There's the virus, there's IP, there's trade, privacy issues. I mean, we're all, our country and the world's going to have to figure out what about 5G and Huawei's role. But okay, learn about those things, but then you need to decide what do you want to do.
Let's
you
do
navigate?
a panel on just that talk. Like, and if you're having those talks, please invite me, because those are the conversations that I just thrive on. This is good too. Don't get me wrong. I mean, because this is going there, but we got to get past that and rebuild the world as a unity and figure out who we do speak with. How do we build the standards? The trust is not ever going to be there, I don't think. But we have to do business with them. We just can't cut them off the globe, can we, Nick?
I don't think so. They're not going to be cut off the globe. But I'll tell you that we beam into Hong Kong, but we have apparently a difficult time beaming into mainland China for whatever reason. So I don't know. But it is what it is.
You've got a fast-moving show. It's probably hard to monitor everything that's being said.
Well, that's
We
true.
don't monitor anything. We don't cut.
Yeah, well, we have 3-second delay, and I don't know if Ankit can delay things fast enough. But the
He's
thing
so
is,
good. Trust me, he's
Yeah, he's
part
pretty
of
good.
these things.
but,
Yeah.
but we're supposed to stay away from politics and religion. I mean, that's part of what IBM told us: stay away from politics and religion. But it's kind of hard to stay away from politics all the time and religion all the time, because it affects everybody's country and every facet of our lives, unfortunately. But to the most part, we're trying to stay on positive task and what people can do working together to create an environment which would be better. I think on coronavirus, the good news on that, it kind of unites the world, because it's an enemy of everybody. In other words, not everybody's happy with getting a virus in their their country. So the thing is, we're kind of united globally to find treatments and vaccines for the coronavirus. But unfortunately, because of its danger, it also unites us globally in terms of a negative economic effect. And that's the real problem. And when we started the show several months ago, we saw two pandemics on the horizon. Pandemic number one was the virus itself. Then there was pandemic number two, which is the economic pandemic that takes place right afterwards and will last longer. I mean, I just don't see this thing going away if the virus goes away. And we're going to
add in one other answer to the question, Nicholas, that you asked me about the overall economic outlook. I think this future that we're going to have, the price of carbon is going to be really low. And I don't think it's coming back. I could be wrong, but that's one big economic change. That sector is really going to be under pressure. Coal, oil, gas, natural gas, fracking, all that stuff. It's going to affect certain countries big time. Nigeria,